I think universities, for the most part, are not necessarily preparing the students for a more competitive career landscape. Some universities do a good job at imparting knowledge and stimulating your mind, but preparing you for a dynamic career, I don't think is one of the strong suits of most universities. I grew up in San Francisco, and in the 6th grade, took a computer repair class. It was a class in which we learned how to repair Macintosh computers. It was an amazing class in which I learned a lot about technology, in part because our teacher was brilliant. But like so many technology teachers, he was also a bit weird. He denied, for one, that he had a real name. He made us address him as Mac Doctor. He said, one of the best ways to change the world is to become an entrepreneur, is to identify problems in the world and try to solve them. And so some classmates and I, from that day forward, began looking at the world as an entrepreneur does, looking at problems as opportunities. And we started hatching different internet business ideas to try to live out this message of think different. The challenge was, while I was interested in technology and interested in business and interested in trying to change the world, I knew very little about business, and very little about technology, very little about changing the world. And so I went and tried to meet with as many people as possible who could give me advice on how to become an entrepreneur, how to start a business, how to build a website. The reason we say approach your career as if it's like starting a business is that the conditions in which entrepreneurs start companies, namely massive amounts of uncertainty and change and competition, those are now the same conditions we all face when building a career. And the challenge, some of the key challenges in doing this is that when you start something new, when you start a career or start a company or kind of restart a career or start another company, it often involves some risk and uncertainty, and people have a hard time with risk and uncertainty. They try to avoid that. They try to focus on what's known and certain. But the problem is the best opportunities are the ones that have some risk and uncertainty. And if you want to be entrepreneurial about your career, you have to embrace that uncertainty and take it on, and most people struggle with that. Thinking of your career and your life as perpetually a work in progress. For entrepreneurs, finished is an F word, and so must finished be an F word for all of us. We can never be finished. There's always the next round of improvements. And while this may strike some as a pessimistic attitude, you're always flawed in some way. There's always work to do. In fact, I'd argue it's a rather optimistic approach, because it implies that you have the power and the capability to improve yourself and to iterate on yourself, and to find ways to get even smarter. Well, I think, Picasso once said, all humans are artists, and the artist gets beaten out of us as we get older. I think you could say something similar about our entrepreneurial instinct, that the instinct to be self-sufficient, to be creative, to be adaptive, to be innovative, we tend to lose that as we get older because, it's easier to follow the path that's already been laid out before us as opposed to forging a new path. And so the problem with not being entrepreneurial is we have a harder time adapting to change. The message of the Startup BU is that we can all reclaim that entrepreneurial instinct and deploy it along with modern skills to become more competitive. So one of the myths of entrepreneurship that we've discussed is that entrepreneurs are these lone hero geniuses, right? And in fact, they're not that way. They build tremendous networks and tremendous teams to help them accomplish great things. Another myth, though, and a related myth, is that entrepreneurs are these geniuses that have a single idea and pursue that idea all the way till successful execution. Of course, it's not that way at all. If entrepreneurs are good at anything, they're good at adapting. They're good at understanding how the market's changing, how they're changing as entrepreneurs, how the competition's changing, and then adapt their business accordingly. And some of the most successful businesses today have these fascinating stories of adaptation. Companies like PayPal, which started as encrypted cash on Palm Pilots,
and pivoted a million times to become online payment transfer. Or Flickr, the photo sharing site, which started as a massive multiplayer online game, of which sharing photos with other users was a small feature. But it turned out everyone was using that feature. And so they made the whole business about that. Whatever our plan is today, whatever our career plan, whatever our life plan is today, will likely have to change. So we call this ABZ planning. And ABZ stands for Plan A, Plan B, Plan Z. So Plan A is your current plan. It's a thing you're doing now. It's your current professional opportunity. It's your current job. Plan B is what you do. Plan A doesn't work out. So I'd ask, and I'd pose the question to you all, what is your Plan B? You don't have to have it written down or hard cut, but it's worth thinking about the skills and experiences that you accumulate today that could apply to something else, to apply to something adjacent, something related but different. Plan Z is what you do if all hell breaks loose. It's you're laid off, it's your company goes under, it's the backstop, it's the lifeboat.
I think the one of the best ways to be okay with failure and to embrace the uncertainty that can lead to failure is to have people in your network who have failed or who have embraced uncertainty in the way that you want to. The power of example and the power of a role model can really motivate you to take action in situations where you'd otherwise be paralyzed. I think certainly most entrepreneurs that start companies, the company doesn't work out. I mean, most companies fail essentially, and so when venture capitalists invest in companies, they're looking for kind of 1 or 2 out of every 10 investments to really work out in a big way. I think from the entrepreneur perspective, there will be a lot of risk. There's always going to be risk, and the key is to take intelligent risk, but to avoid the mortal risk, avoid the risk that can kill you, avoid the risk that can make you homeless, that can make you bankrupt, and instead take smaller, intelligent risks as you build your company. So adapt, invest, and transform. So adapt, by that we mean adapting yourself as you change, as the competition changes, as the market changes. So adapting your skill set, adapting your interests, adapting your location, your activities in order to meet the latest opportunities. By invest, we mean investing in yourself every single day. If you adapt and if you invest, you can transform your career, you can transform your situation, propel yourself into a better environment or a better opportunity.
And a few years ago, I was having breakfast with Reid Hoffman, who started LinkedIn, and I was telling him about my experiences as an entrepreneur and my emerging thesis that entrepreneurship was more of a life idea than a business one. That there are people all over the world who are thinking and acting like an entrepreneur, even if they weren't in Silicon Valley starting a tech company. And as we were talking about these kind of shared observations, it was right when the economic recession was hitting, and jobs and unemployment and careers were on every newspaper's headlines all over the world. And there was tremendous anxiety, both in America and abroad, about how people were going to survive and thrive in this competitive, globalized world. And we concluded that this idea of entrepreneurship and the universal manifestation of that idea, the idea that anyone can think and behave like an entrepreneur, maybe that's the solution set, maybe that's the playbook that individuals need to take control of their career in tough economic times.
I met Reid a few years ago, and we had both been thinking about this idea of every individual being a small business, the small business of themselves. I was thinking about it based on my personal experiences meeting with very entrepreneurial people around the world who were not necessarily starting companies. He had been thinking about it ever since he started LinkedIn in 2003 to be the technology platform on which individuals could manage the business of themselves, manage their network especially, but also other of their soft assets. And so we both had been thinking about this concept for a while. So when we met and discovered this mutual interest, we thought it would be fun and important to write something that would crystallize this set of ideas to help people with modern challenges. Today's challenges require you to have a team to deal with them. So if you think about any sport, no matter how talented you are, if you're a solo person, you'll always lose out to a team. So one really excellent football player is going to lose to 10 medium good football players. And so teams are important. Networks of people can accomplish much more than individuals. And that's why it's critical for every individual to have a team around them, to have a virtual company around them, in a sense, as they navigate their career and make career decisions.
Because while your allies tend to be people who are like you, they tend to look like you, they tend to work in the same industry, they tend to live in the same place, you tend to see them a lot, they're like you. Your acquaintances tend to not be like you. They tend to be different. With online networks, we have the capacity to connect with hundreds, potentially thousands of these professional acquaintances, the people we meet in a lightweight professional context. And if we stay in touch with those people can be extremely valuable because they're getting exposed to a different type of information flow. And that information flow can lead to a new job or some other type of career opportunity.
The greatest entrepreneurs that I know are both outstanding people and visionary entrepreneurs, as well as they're pursuing an idea or a market that's growing. And that combination of team and market is I think what people look for when trying to back the highest potential entrepreneurs. So someone who's resilient and adaptable and who can hustle, but who's also pursuing a market opportunity that's very large.